Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish. All right, we're talking about the paradox of change. And the reason why is because what we think works doesn't necessarily work. And sometimes there's this, cataclysmic, thing happening because it seems like we're working against ourselves or each other or whatever to get to the place of what it is that we're actually trying to get done. James Clear, who's the author of Atomic Habits, is one of my favorite books, says that the natural tendency of life is to find stability. That's heart, mind, body, and soul too, right? You understand that. We all understand that. And you can feel it in your own life. You can feel it, the pushback of the I don't wannas and all of that other kind of stuff that comes in as you try to implement something new. It's normal. It's part and parcel. And it's just how we do business. Our bodies naturally seek equilibrium, homeostasis, this natural place of being in what I call the Goldilocks zone, right there in the middle, at this right place. It's like right in the middle, like in the middle of where a fulcrum is. Instead of going to the left or to the right, you're just sitting there, right in that sweet spot. Blood pressure is like that. Have you ever had high blood pressure or low blood pressure? Neither one feels good, right? You want to be somewhere right in the middle, just right in that Goldilocks zone. And your doctor will tell you, believe me, your doctor will tell you if you're not in the right place, your doctor's going to pipe up and say, hey, we need to deal with this. This is important. But your body is constantly seeking this. Also, this equilibrium thing, right? Also, so are you. So is your brain. So is every part of you. Your life is seeking that equilibrium. That just make it easy, make it just make it. Don't change anything. And we'll all talk. We're all happy to hold our hands up and say, "Oh, I hate change." And I wonder about that. But I wonder if we're also writing our own stories at that point. I wonder if we're setting ourselves up for this kind of disaster of pushing back. I mean, it's a given that we're going to seek this kind of homeostasis in our lives when it comes to change, that we're always going to want to go back to what we know. But I wonder if when we start saying about how much we hate change and how much we don't want to and how much this, that, and the other thing, if we don't heavily load the fulcrum to the other side and tip ourselves over, I wonder. So we have to look at the patterns in our lives, don't we? We all do. I mean, we have patterns. I've shared with you ad nauseum my morning ritual of how I get up in the morning and do the coffee, do the 4-minute workout, the emptying of the dishwasher, and then sit down and have my coffee meditation and write in my journal and all of that. It all takes about, from the very minute that I wake up in the morning and getting the dog out and doing all of that, it's about 24 minutes. About 24 minutes. I timed it today just to see how much time does that all take. But you know what I found? I have found that that's something that I didn't have to push too hard on because I added it to things that I was already doing. And I want to share some of these ideas with you because I think our tendency is to throw everything out and to clear the decks and to try to start over thinking, if we've gone from, a steady diet of In-N-Out burger or whatever drive-through kind of garbage we've been eating to suddenly saying, what I'm really craving is a salad and some grilled chicken. It's probably not going to work that way. And it's going to cause maybe a few issues. So I want to talk about how we can create a little bit of homeostasis in our worlds and how we can do this incrementally. And I want to show you just some contrast. So eat well is one of the things that a lot of people will put, especially as we get closer to January 1st. Everybody makes these New Year's resolutions. The top ones are lose weight, eat better, and at home, and get organized. Those are the top 3 every single year. And do you know why those are the top 3? Because every year people make those same New Year's resolutions and come back to them the next year because they didn't even make a dent in any of them. And I think the reason why is this notion of clearing it all out and starting over. You see this. I remember, what was it? Because I told you I'm just like pretty much a couch potato usually on Sundays, especially if it's a little cold outside or whatever. I prefer to stay in my jammies and watch a ton of HGTV or read. And HGTV had on a Love It or List It, or Love It or List It, something, one of those. And I'm always shocked at watching them walk in. They walk into the family's house, and I wonder, does the director say to the family that this is going to be that just leave the house a disaster? I mean, their houses are a disaster, and then they come home after they're gone. They empty the house. They redesign their house. Are you going to love it or are you going to list it? You've seen the show, and the house is completely set beautifully. Everything about it is beautiful. It's staged and it's gorgeous, and the colors and everything's updated. Everything's new. But my question is, how soon before it looks like just an updated version of the mess that they left behind, that they allowed the whole world to take a look at with cameras going through their house? How soon before that happens? And it's the same thing like with yo-yo dieting, with any of it. So if we want to eat well, or do we want to, we look at the contrast. We want to eat well, or do we want to go through the drive-in? And quite often there's a drive-through, rather. There's a little bit of a push. There's a lot of that, and it's like, how do I get out of the drive-through and home creating my own food instead? And does it happen overnight? And my answer to that is usually not. Usually not. Maybe what we need to do is start taking it down a little bit and thinking about how many times do you want to be eating out, and how many times do you want to be eating at home? The same thing with exercise. You do too much, you find yourself either injured or exhausted and tired and saying, I was too hard, I'm never going to do that again. Well, what about stepping it in, like a little bit here, 10 minutes there, 5 minutes here, a 4-minute workout there, at the top of the hour, just adding it on in to what you're already doing. We talk about this, how it's piggybacking, but it doesn't mean that in order to exercise that you have to go join a gym, drive to get there, buy new equipment, blah, blah, blah. And what I'm saying, and we're talking about hours now, as opposed to what could be something that works into your day. What about that? Same with the cleaning up of your house. My whole thing when my kids were growing up, our house was either immaculate or it was a disaster, or it was immaculate on its way to disaster and then a disaster. And, I told you about that TikTok video that I saw. Pick it up, put it away. Take it out, put it away. Take it out, put it away. That's all she said in her TikTok video. It showed her going in, and I thought, wow, that's, that took me forever to learn. How many Fly Lady lessons did I need to get that into my head? But once I did, it changed everything. And it changed everything in my home. It changed everything, even in my office. It changed everything. And when we learn this, we have to understand this is a habit. And to create that habit, it just starts with one thing. It starts with just putting your toothbrush back in the drawer or in the stand or whatever it is. What if you just did that every day? What if you just made your bed? What if you just, put your dishes in the dishwasher? Those little things, pick up, put away, pupa. Terry said. I love that. Pupa. Just like a little caterpillar is a pupa, ready to become a butterfly. What about that? We could go on that, right? And then staying in touch too. The other thing is with relationships. Have you noticed that relations need to have a lot of high touch in order to stay in love with your beloved? You need to be loving toward your beloved and doing things and appreciative and respectful and kind and all the rest. And I've also noticed the other thing too, which I'm going to loop in and mention, is that you also need to be content with yourself. I think oftentimes what happens is our discontentment with ourselves go rolling on and on to the other person. So if we can be content with ourselves and secure in who we are, oftentimes that makes a big difference. But that's daily work. It is a daily habit to do so and to be so. And these are the things that these are kind of our versions of equilibrium right here. And we settle into whatever that version is and whatever it is that's comfortable and whatever it is that's known. But the contentment or discontent, I should say, of our daily lives are based on feedback loops that we have in our daily evaluation. And we do that. Don't you do that? Whether or not you're articulating this or not, whether or not you're in a Take Back Your Life journal and writing about your wins for the day or whatever it is, sometimes it's even unconscious that we do that, but we just don't feel real good about stuff. Have you noticed that one? We just don't feel really good about some. Did we follow through or did we fall apart? Did we follow through or did we fall down again? And we make an evaluation just even for a minute or 10 seconds or whatever, as we get into bed and we start kind of reevaluating our day and thinking it just wasn't a great day. I didn't get a whole lot done. And that's what our judgment call usually is. How much did I get done? Well, getting done is a feedback loop in and of itself. It feeds us back. It tells us that you did a good job. You were productive. You helped the family out. You furthered the ball down the field and all of that. And it makes a big, big difference that when we do this, because that's based on our equilibrium. Really, it is based on our equilibrium and how we feel about ourselves by what we do. I hate to say it because it sounds really contractual, and maybe it is a little bit, but it is based on the equilibrium of our habits and the delicate balance of our environment, our potential, and how we track, or if we track at all. And I've noticed this, that the folks who and the women who have taken off the weight, kept it off, who have kept on with their daily habits, they are tracking. And they've made tracking a habit. And that habit is showing up with their dailiness of what it is that they're doing. They're accountable. And what that does is it brings us back to our potential, the potential of what could be. The potential of what is, and the potential of what it is that you want to achieve with your life. We can still take care of ourselves and our homes and our lives, achieving the things that we want to achieve simply by finding our little balance, our little place of balance, and finding this equilibrium that we need. We curate our environments to do that. That's one of the biggest factors. It's the framework for making this whole thing run. When you curate your environment, then you've got more control than when everything is just wackadoodle crazy. But the deal is, until we try to make any changes, we hardly notice any of it. Do we? Have you noticed that? We hardly notice any of it, even to our discontent. It's only when we start to try to make some of these changes that we notice, oh my gosh, this is just crazy. This is just, everything's just out of whack. But the paradox is when we hear stuff like massive growth equals massive change and all these other little cute sayings, and God forbid, I'm probably one of the purveyors of those things. But the fact is that we know in human behavior that nobody makes massive behavior changes and stays with them. It's just, it's a it's an idea, it's a concept, but it doesn't work because that's not how humans are meant to handle things. We can't handle it biologically, right? If we do that, we go into shock, with sepsis or, whatever. We can't handle these big swings. You want your heart beating regularly, not beating really fast and then not beating really slow. I mean, maybe for a minute with your exercising or whatever, but you know what I'm saying. Your body is constantly seeking equilibrium and homeostasis. So are you. So's your life. So's your brain. And that's the paradox of change right there. We think I've got to have this massive change. I've got to just clear everything out and just burn it all down. And it's going to be just like love it or list it, You're going to come back and everything's going to be updated and pretty, pretty, pretty. But the crap will be everywhere and it'll be the big mess that it always was, unless the habits change. So, biologically, physiologically, and psychologically, I want you to remember those things because that is honoring to who you are as a woman. That is honoring to who you are as a human being. And it allows for a lot of grace, a lot of grace. We need that grace, we need that. That's really why, seriously, this is why we're calling a carb cutter a grace in a bottle. I need to have a little stuffing with my Thanksgiving turkey. I do. And now I've got a little grace in the bottle that's going to help me do that without the damage, right? Those are the little things. Those are the little things that make a difference. And we have the ability to add grace all the way around to all the different things that we're trying to do. Because remember, we're always trying to look for stability. That's how we're built, So we want to feel like, it sometimes feels like you want to attempt to change, even when you want to attempt to change, that something's going to come up and disrupt you. Have you ever had that happen? Anyone? I mean to tell you. How about this? You're in the middle of your morning meditation and the dog throws up all over the couch. Anyone? Raise your hand. Or your husband surprises you. You're in the middle of the sprint. Everything's going great. And he says, look, he comes home and he's got chocolate and flowers, maybe he's apologizing or maybe he's just trying to be extra sweet or whatever. That happens. Or, your electricity goes out and your workout goes out too. And there you are sitting there in the dark. So your best attempts at doing something get thwarted. It happens. It's a battle with circumstances. Let's just go with that. And it is. It happens. Your brain, your schedule, your energy, they all shift and they all are requiring energy to make that shift. Every single thing. Your brain needs the energy to make the shift. And this little thing that comes up, this little electricity outage or dog bark or whatever, boom, throws you off. We had some people at our house on Monday doing some things and it threw me off and I didn't get my workout in. And I was at the end of the day, I was in bed, laying in bed thinking, see, this is what I do, right? You do it too, right? I'm laying in bed and I was thinking, that didn't have to throw my workout out. Just because I normally do it at this time doesn't mean that I couldn't have done it and tucked it in another part of the day. But I just automatically went to that because this is how we're wired, seeking that constant equilibrium because I had other things planned for that time and other things that I was going to do, personal and otherwise. So it's crazy. So you've got a point A and a point B kind of a thing, sort of remember the line that you learned in geometry, this is point A and this is point B. I'm not good at math, or geometry either, but I'm working on it. So point A is this is your stubbornness. This is your, I don't want us. This is even maybe you saying, oh, I just feel lazy today, right? Point A. And then you got point B over here, which is to go hard, burn out, and then never touch it again. And in the middle, somewhere in the middle, wherever you fit, is your Goldilocks zone. It's just right. And you've dialed it in to fit you. Because you know what? This is the thing. Because of the way I do things, you don't need to do things the same way. I do things because I don't have children at home anymore. I do things the way that I do. I work from my home. I have the grace and the ability and privilege, by the way, of being able to do this way. And you may not. You might have a bunch of kids that you need to handle, or an elderly parent, or a job outside of your home. And so your point A and point B and your middle is going to look different than mine. And we have to acknowledge that, and we have to live with that, because change comes in these little incremental tune-ups, these little incremental boop, boop. It makes all the difference in the world. So let's say, for example, let's just say that sleep is a thing that's raised its little ugly head. By the way, did you see the new thing? It just came out. NBC News had it out, talking about the best times to go to bed. And guess what? I'm patting myself on the back, between 10 and 11 o'clock at night, because your cardiac health is going to be that much better. Read the full report, but I'm telling you, we've been talking about that because the circadian rhythm of our bodies, we can't fool that. We're not meant to stay up as night owls. Sorry, y'all. But it's just fascinating reading. And so let's say you read that and now you're saying, you know what, I need to fix that. I've been a night owl all my life, and this isn't good for me. This isn't good for my body, my biology, any other human. No, it's not good for any human. So what do you want to do? Do you just say, I'm get in bed and sit there, it's 10 o'clock at night and you're wide awake? No, you start tapering it down. Go to bed 15 minutes earlier tonight. Maybe tomorrow night you go to bed another 15 minutes early, and do it a little bit at a time. You want to eat better? Well, if you do the hot melt sprint, start with the warm up and learn how to drink black coffee, and learn how to maybe take out some of the snacks that you're eating, and start seeing these little itsy bitsy changes make their way into, this is how we do things now. That's how I got to the place of black coffee, and hundreds and thousands of other women have too. It's doable, a little bit at a time. Consistent exercise, well, get your gear on. Get your gear on, and then figure out, where's it going to fit in my day. Take a look at your schedule and see, how's it going to work. And then that's how you get that done. Better eating, well, go curate your pantry. Do you really need to have those little Debbies in there? Do you need the Oreos and the chips and all the other kind of garbage? Or can you just say, you know what, that's enough, get it out? And it depends on what your family situation is, of course. But curate what you can curate. That's when you need to do. That's when you need to do it. Plan your meals. And does that mean that every single meal is going to be planned and perfect now from now on, when you've been eating out most of the time and, yikes, maybe a lot of it was fast food? Well, maybe what you do is make a goal of having 3 homemade meals at home each week. Maybe there's some bulk cooking. Maybe there's some planning and some shopping. Things like that you can make happen. You go to the grocery store, then maybe you go this time with a list and with a plan. What about that? Better mindset. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, we got the tools for that. And there's small little things. It's surrounding yourself with quotes that are going to make you think differently about some things. So we've got the quote decks. Here's a quote just to show you. It is in the moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. Yep. How about this one? Stop saying, I don't have time for blank. Changing it, I'm not making blank a priority. What? Those who don't believe in magic will never find it. These are quotes. And these kind of things make us start to think about something different. It's a small, itsy bitsy mind shift change. Or how about sitting down for a meal? You're thinking, well, this sounds good. Maybe what I'll have tonight is a little macaroni and cheese and some fried chicken. And then you sit down with a mindful mug of broth, and you're thinking about it. Is my meal going to be mindful tonight? Is it? Is macaroni and cheese and fried chicken mindful? And you question yourself, and you think about it, and you give yourself that moment to think, that moment to process, and that moment to slow down and to stop by using a mindful mug. That's what a mindful mug is. This isn't a coffee mug, y'all. Not even a tea mug. It's for your broth. It's for that moment right before your meal, so you don't fall into the pit, into the abyss of making crazy decisions on the spur of the moment. Even if you go out to dinner, you have a mindful mug before you go, and you take that mindset with you. It's simple. The same thing goes with your journaling. You know, this is when you're reminded about those 3 things that you need to be grateful for today. Because we think about things that we're grateful for, we stop falling into the pit of despair because we're reminded of how much we truly, truly have. So the paradox of change is to work with and not against ourselves, to create small incremental changes that don't trash your life and say, I've got to start over. It isn't all or nothing. That's perfectionism. That's what perfectionism does. And it absolute 100% does not work. Proven to not work. So I want you to start doing this and make these itsy bitsy changes that we've been talking about. The paradox of change is that it doesn't take much. The paradox of change is that you just change a little bit of what it is that you normally do until that starts to become normal. Isn't that cool? And what I say is, just like Goldilocks, you'll discover a vibrant life that's just been waiting for you. One that's just right and customized into your Goldilocks zone, not mine, not anyone else's, but yours. So the tools that I recommend for this definitely are quote decks. We've got 2 different ones available. The mindful mugs, we've got 4 different ones available. And of course, the Take Back Your Life journal with all of the teaching. These are the little things that we can do to start tuning up and going through and making this change possible, because it is. And it doesn't have to mean you're trashing your life. You're just tuning it up. How about that? I say amen to that. Pinkies up if you've made a decision to do this. Pinkies up. What do you think? Peace be with you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.